This guest is Nid Ra, who is a soul guide utilizing intuitive intelligence along trauma-informed practices to guide her clients to inner peace, clarity, and fulfillment in their lives. Nid's ability to track energy at all levels of our experience means that she can support her clients in shifting long-held patterns that no longer serve them. So, Nid, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jasco. I'm good, thank you. It's a lovely morning here in Sydney.
Yeah, I know we are talking about this before we got started, but it's like out of all the things to do at like 6 a.m., this is the thing you chose to do. So I honor your commitment to be on here. And like I said, it's either gonna be a big disaster or it's going to be a good way to wake up. But we're about to find out. So that part's real. So anyway, I'd love for you to like if there's anything else in your bio that you wanted to add about who you are, how you got to doing what you're doing, floor is yours for that.
Thank you. One of the key things in terms of how I got to how I do what I do is probably a little bit of the personal journey piece. So when I grew up, I worked in dance. And I mostly worked with disabilities and movement and didn't really understand fully what my gift was in terms of being able to help people express themselves and utilize emotion in a really beautiful way and the body. But I also had a lot of mental health issues myself. And one of my ways of dealing with that was I decided to become a lawyer. So I became a commercial lawyer. I worked in some very fun media and technology companies in emerging tech when iPhones and things all happened. And that was a really fun career. But I then had also still the mental health issues and a lot of things going wrong with my life, including panic attacks and a marriage that ended. And the culmination of not seeing these things going wrong in my life was that I then had a head injury. I fell down some stairs and landed on my head. And that meant no more work for over a year and a kind of facing of myself and what had happened. And that was a great opportunity. I decided to really plug into finding a sense of purpose. And the journey of rebuilding my life was a good 10 years in the process. I'd say the first 4 years were the hardest, and then it generally got a lot better and a lot easier in terms of basic function of being able to remember things and be in a more full-time work capacity so I could feel more independent. And so those elements are how I started building and healing. And that's that full life journey, I guess, of what I bring through in my work and that capacity to be with those type A perfectionists that come from the legal industry and also dance background. And then also that healing journey of how you can rebuild your life literally from very little and in a very slow, gentle way, because that's what a brain injury requires us to have is a very slow and gentle path that is more positive as well in order for the neurons to want to rewire well.
So I guess what I'm hearing is something that always comes up on the podcast, especially when, other coaches or like healers come on. It's like this idea that your mess becomes your message, right? And it's like you've lived all of the aspects that you would coach your clients through. And I think it's such a beautiful thing where like not only do I know my craft, but I also have the lived experience to go behind it. So I always love when people come on, even in this way, to like walk their own talk and like do that. So just want to kind of acknowledge that piece of your journey because it's not a small one. Like it's quite the journey to go through to be able to then also use that to help other people. So anything else you want to add to that before we move on?
Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, I think it's important to maintain integrity and authenticity in my work. And that's always been a key part of how I communicate with people around my work, even at times when I felt uncomfortable with how to do that. And the positive outcome of all of that rebuilding has been building a successful business and a wonderful new partnership with a wonderful man and immigrating to Australia from England. And so lots of really wonderful things have happened. And I feel very blessed to have got to this place in my life as well. So it's also, having such a positive shift and really feeling blessed and that there is that place to support other people into receiving those kind of beautiful gifts the universe has to offer us.
Love it. Well, you're in a capacity where you're always supporting other people. Today you get to be supported. So what can I support you with today?
the part of my business that's been really interesting is that I managed to grow an audience quite well through my yoga nidra practices, which are a form of deep relaxation and rest. They come from a yogic lineage. They work with the whole brain, so they're a really beautiful tool. And on top of that, some movement practices, fun in self-care, using YouTube, never with a goal to make a big YouTube channel, just as a way of connecting people. And through that, I did manage to then build an Instagram following, which was good. But again, we were lacking engagement. So it was growing to like 7,000 people, but the engagement was super low, which was interesting. And then we realized there were lots of bots getting in there. So I've closed that account, which has obviously confused followers. We also managed to build a good email list and, with like over 800 people in it. But again, it's not always that good with engagement. And so this is one of the issues that I've been working with for a while is how to build engagement, especially towards more group events and group trainings that I offer. I've got a good number of private clients that come through quite regularly, but it's really more seeing more engagement coming through. And I'm on Insight Timer, like 12,000 people. So, there's a nice following. And it's that piece of how people transition across from following and being more connected in the business and the offerings.
So how do you define engagement?
Well, I guess on social media, it's, more likes and more comments, which I'm not a big fan of being commented and liked, in that social media sphere. Ironically, I worked for MySpace, so I worked in social media before Facebook was there, let alone Instagram. So I feel really old. And that part that, is looking, like I'm not interested in like, looking and I'm looking. Engagement for me is, it's nice to have comments, but also to see conversions over. So seeing, people clicking on the links, signing up for more mailing, then from the mailing, signing up for, even if they're just replying and asking questions, interest for enrollment.
Okay, so I guess your definition of engagement is kind of this umbrella term that includes both the conversion event of somebody's becoming a client and then also they're interacting with me in some sort of way.
Because it's both of those two things that seem to be slower and not really responding in the way that would be anticipated. And I think because I've engaged now a couple of marketing consultants to look at it, and they've come in and they've done projects on removing bots to say, okay, now the engagement should happen. There is both the marketing engagement piece, and then also for those coming through who are within the container, there's still also not always that conversion piece. I would say actually the conversion piece feels like it's probably stronger once they're within. So it's definitely that conversion through, but there is still a space. So it's the action part, I guess. It's that like, you post like comment below and then there's no comments or something.
Mhm.
It's that action part.
And you mentioned conversions are actually strong once they're in what?
In like email. I also have an app. And so that's a great place because that shows where everything is. And
Okay.
people can easily get into the courses and the classes within it.
So
And so that's new.
when people get onto your email list, then they buy. Is that what you're saying?
I'd say it's at like 6%, which is definitely a lot better.
Hmm.
6 to 12% in terms of conversion, which I'm quite happy with. I mean, obviously, I'd love it to still be more.
And this is
um,
conversion into what, like your private clients or just
Mostly private clients, yes.
okay.
Some for the groups are still very small, and that's something I'd like to see get larger. The groups generally they sit between 6 and 10 people still, so they're not growing, and that's been a consistent piece that is where I know that there's a vulnerability part because and where I know I've been emotionally triggered in the past with the groups with comments about the size of the groups.
Okay. So that's fair. Okay, so I just want to get a clear idea of the context as well. So in general, my conversions, like you're happy with, like obviously they could always be bigger and better, and then that's fine. But so again, you're saying 6% for what? Like somebody joins an email list, you send an offer. Every time you send an offer out to your group, about 6% of your list converts in some sort of way.
Um, Not always, no. So I would say it depends. If what we've been doing is we've been tailoring the emails so that they're going to more bespoke groups, and those ones are doing better. So then it becomes
Like you're
an average of
segmenting
6
your group.
overall. Yeah. So when they're segmented, they're doing a lot better, definitely.
Okay, that's fair.
Yep.
And when you segment them, then they still get some sort of conversion into, I'm assuming like a sales call, or they buy one of your programs. Like is that
Mostly, yeah. Yeah, mostly, yeah. I think there's been one that didn't convert at all, which was quite concerning. Um, so that's where it's not being consistent.
Mhm.
Still,
And
I
this
mean,
is
it's a new
different offers
system.
each time, or it's the same offer of like to work with you privately one
Um,
on one?
no, so we've been doing group offers for the last couple of months. So within the new, because we have the new app that launched back in May,
Hmm.
we've been trying to bring people into group. So we have a donation group practice each month. And then there's been some courses. So we've been advertising the courses as well. And so those are the two things that probably, to a degree, you could say, well, that's three different group events. And so you've split people up across it.
Hmm.
Some people have moved between each, so they sign up for all three, and some people don't.
Okay. So what is your ultimate goal? Like, is it to grow the groups? It's to grow your one-on-ones? It's to make like a higher income? Like what is your ultimate goal?
I'd like to grow the groups
Okay. And why do
ultimately.
you want to grow the groups?
So I think it makes a beautiful container for more collective work to come through when there's a larger group. And the energy of the group holds one another, and they each have beautiful wisdom to share. So I think that it empowers people to realize their own skills, their own gift set, and what they can bring to other people, which is what I really want to see in my clients.
Okay. And so there's a group aspect where because of the group, there's a different energy to them. Like there's more interactivity. People can bounce ideas off of each other. It's a different container than one-on-one, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And when you sell your one-on-ones, that's just one-on-one work with you on a particular, like to solve a particular issue, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the offer of the groups is what? Like just join a group?
The offer of the groups, there's a couple of different groups. So one is a breathwork group. So
Hmm.
they do breathing to help be more present with their emotions and be more accepting of things as they are. There is another group, which is a contemplation practice using the gene keys, because I'm a gene keys guide. And there's another one, which is a meditation group. So that is working with and learning light frequency healing, which is a very powerful course. And all three of those, they slightly attract different people. They're not always the same. Like not everyone who's going to want to do breath work wants to do meditation, and not everyone who does meditation likes contemplation. So they're giving space for the different kinds of clients that I have that don't necessarily want to work with the other modality.
Okay. So you're basically making groups around the particular modality that you are exploring.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And then your one-on-one stuff, like what's if you had to give me a short pitch of your one-on-one offer, what would that be?
Depends on the level of your problem. If you've got a bad back, we'll do movement work and we'll work out what's going on with that and
Hmm.
energetically. If there's emotional overwhelm and overthinking and blah, world stuff, then it's going to be what's called the luminous life, where we blend breath work and discussion contemplative practices. And then there's soul realignment readings, which are Akashic record clearing and resets of behavioral patterns.
Got it. So for your one-on-one work, it's very problem solution centric. I have a bad back, I'm going to give you this. You have an emotional problem, I'm going to give you this. If you have misalignment, I'm going to give you this. Okay. So just from that discussion, what do you think is the difference between your groups and your one-on-one work?
Well, there's definitely, you could be more specific with the groups and be like, we're going to solve a problem in a group.
Okay. So you kind of already know that, but then it's like you make a face. Should I do that? Should I not? Like, what's your take when you
I
hear that?
do. I do put that in the group. So, with the emotional, like with the breath work, I will say, come tend to your emotions so you can be less emotional and feel more calm and still throughout the life events that happen. So
Hmm.
that is an outcome, right? Is to feel less emotional and less like you can't control yourself. Um, so, there's like, I'm like, it is in there. The same with contemplation. It's like open your mind to see the beauty of what's here before you and retrain your brain away from the negative thoughts, you know,
Okay.
gently. So they're there. I don't think that I don't communicate it, if that makes sense.
I mean, okay, yeah. So I just had to prompt you to get there. So
To
that
say it.
just could also be context for me versus like obviously your list. Like it's two different people. So I get that. Um, I guess just from the outside looking in, like the first thing is, well, it makes sense right off the bat, like why one is selling and the other one kind of isn't. When it's like,
Mm,
even when I ask you, because it's really about groups, about the modality, there's never going to be, unless you're a practitioner learning a modality, that big of an interest to just do the modality in terms of buy-in as like, I have this problem and I want it solved, right? And you've clearly invested in marketing stuff before, so like you're aware of this, but it just seems to me like that there's this dilution of I really want to grow the groups, yet the intentionality of the groups seems to me a lot more diluted and a lot more, I don't know if people pleasing is the right way to say it, but like I'm kind of acquiescing to what I feel
mm,
like, oh, well, you don't want to do this modality, so no worries, let me just segment you into like this one, which again makes sense, but it's kind of like if you are a transformational facilitator, then it's kind of like the onus is on us to then discern like, okay, are you interested in solving a problem or are you interested in like dabbling and exploring, etc. There are
mm.
avenues for both, but it's like you have to then be clear which type of person do you serve and why. So before I go on, like what lands for you with those reflections?
I don't mind if there is an element of people pleasing because I was definitely brought up to people please as a child, so I know that that can creep in, and try to keep it out of my business. I do think that my approach of giving people different modalities is more because I see that if someone responds energetically, if it's sitting in a certain part of their energy field, that's where it needs to be dealt with. And there's no point in me saying to someone who's super emotional, come do contemplation. If for them, like they really do respond well and they can feel like, oh, it's in my breathing, right? Then I'm going to be like, you need to do breath work. And me putting them in a contemplation class is not going to serve them best. However, if they were someone who's super emotional, but they really can't connect with their breath, then I'm going to say, come do contemplation because learning to pause and be asked open questions is going to be far more beneficial for them. So I guess that's the part of me. That's how I work with my private clients is I move between things with them if I need to. And so it's allowing the right energy to move is more what I'm interested in. And that's why I have the different groups. I do think you're right, though, that probably there is not sufficient specificity to
Okay.
help people move.
So in that case, it's like the beauty of what you do is you can use your own discernment to figure out what this person actually needs, which means they have to be in your expert sphere for you to look at them and be like, listen, based off of everything that I see here, this is where you need to go. But it's like, I can see how that's very valuable in a one-on-one setting. But when you flip that around, it's like it almost sounds like you're letting the other, like the client on the like the end user kind of decide what it is that they need. Then it's like you're actually like negating and bypassing your own gift of discernment in choosing for them, like, no, 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 this is the thing that you need. So just that part is, I guess, what I was saying when sensing into like there's like a diluted energy with these groups of like I don't really understand what it is that you're trying to solve here because in comparison to your one-on-one work, which is very clear, this is like it just it doesn't really land anywhere.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And that it's interesting you say discernment because that's definitely the piece that I've been sitting with is it's not feeling like it's lining up in the way that I normally do things. And one of the issues I would definitely say that I see in people coming through, and they'll do the clarity call because they'll be like, I'm not sure what to do. And I can point them very quickly and say, you go do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and that way then at least they've got the support, in a group setting. They don't have to come and do a private if they can't afford that.
Hmm.
Which is also the point of doing the groups, right? Is to be accessible. And once they're in the group containers, obviously they get access to that.
So it's like, I guess, one group container with all of the options, and you just tell them like, okay, I don't know, Monday is like this call, Wednesday is that call, Friday is that call.
So the membership that I have, which is within the app, that is where that can definitely happen. But
Okay.
that's new and that's still being that's literally they're like just in the testing phase of launching as to how it works from my end as well in terms of perceiving it. So I think that's the intention of that membership space is that everything gets pulled through and people can drop in to the different appropriate courses.
Got it. Okay. Well, then like that could just be like it's the delivery of it isn't really a fit in the way that it was initially described, where it's like,
Mm.
don't let them choose. You're actually the one, like your gift is to actually choose for them. Like this is exactly what you need.
Okay.
These are the resources where you go to, right? And that might help with the dilution aspect because it's more in tune with it's like it's a success recipe that gives you your one-on-one results. Now we just need to replicate it on the group element, and then that it just means everybody funnels into one area, and then I let you know you need to be here for this type of modality or there for that type of modality or go through this training, etc. But the membership itself lends itself to all available things. So like, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And you've like helped me really clarify, yeah, that new group offering and how to present it differently as well.
Okay, good. So I'm glad that that's landing. Okay, so if we now backtrack about the whole engagement piece, right? Because similar to this whole group thing, it's like there's a lack of definition and clarity of like what you mean by like it's like the group is this umbrella thing that actually encapsulates a whole bunch of different things. And then engagement also encapsulates a bunch of different things from likes to conversions, etc. So what is it that you actually want here? Do you want likes and comments? Do you want growth of an audience? Do you want sales? Like, what is it that you actually want?
Um, in my heart, I'd want to support people. And so that's more just impact. And impact is in any way that serves the person who's engaging with the work, whether it's the free work that's in the marketing, that's on Insight Timer or YouTube, like any of the free work that can impact and help someone, then I'm just happy that that happens. From a from that part of my ego that gets triggered by people saying to me, your groups need to be bigger because you in person has such an impact on people, which maybe I need to be more claiming of the fact that I do that in person. So therefore, it is to do with engagement is people booking through into the live events. That's what
Okay.
I'd like to see. Yeah, live courses, live classes, like bringing people through. I've had 350 people on meditations on Insight Timer, right? And then you get 6 people in a course, and it's like, how did that, But then I love that many people want to do the meditation, and can receive that much from it. But again, it's that piece, isn't it? But there's more help that can be done.
Right. So like I use Insight Timer, so I'm familiar with some of the functionality, etc. I'm not on there as like whatever a coach, etc. This is not meditation is not something I teach. Anyway, um, when people sign up for your meditations, they're usually free, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you then offer a course, that is a higher intentionality, like consciousness. Like we are paying to get this result, paying to solve this problem, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think it's shocking that there are a lot of dabblers and a lot less
Oh
like
no.
transformationally committed people?
No, I don't. And also, I also have to recognize that Insight Timer doesn't allow you to promote or sell other things that are off the platform. And so it has to be done in quite a gentle way
Right.
to that audience. So there's also quite a complex marketing piece in that one, which I can appreciate why it then also doesn't lead to much coming between. But I guess in terms of my example of what my intention is, like I'm really happy to see the people doing the Insight Timer meditations. That lifts my heart. But from a practical business perspective, I also want to see that shift happening in people that's bigger than that. And that also does go with lifting my heart because I know it's a deeper shift and that has a ripple effect of the clients that I work with and who they go out with and how they take those lessons out and share it with other people in their lives.
Fair. So there's an aspect of that happening kind of for free for everyone. And then there's
Yeah.
the deeper committed transformation. Okay. So going back to the whole defining engagement, what is it that you ultimately want?
At this time, it feels like I want to see the groups grow. That's what I want at this time. It feels supportive for the business. It's at a stage where that would be really supportive to help the business grow further because there's only so much private work I can do, and there's only so much I can keep putting up my private client costs.
Okay. So if you want the groups to grow, and it seems to me like the why behind that is, well, the like it supports the
Ripple
broader
effect.
business
Yeah.
goals and profit. Okay. So do you actually want engagement or do you want more group members?
I want more group members, but part of what's going to get more group members is more people engaging with that offering.
Okay. Well, is that true if most of your people buy from email?
I've had the irony is I have had some random people buy from Instagram, um, which I always find very strange. But no, I don't, it doesn't feel, and it never has felt, like I said, I've never chased that social media kind of engagement piece. I recognize that it's considered by marketing experts that if you see good engagement, it means there's more likely going to be a conversion. That's the
So,
logical part of me that wants to say there should be more engagement because that will lead to more conversion. I want to see more conversion within my email is really
right. So then
essential.
why is the shoulds of the marketing gurus more important than your own life experience?
Um, it's that bits of feedback along the way that people are walking towards the email list, I guess. Like it's that sometimes we look for those steps along the route. And I'm not generally someone that needs to look at steps along the route. I do just look at like, well, how many people are signed up, how many people have shown up, you know.
Hmm.
That's what I actually really look at myself, and the energy of who's really coming through.
Okay.
So
So,
for me, I shouldn't listen to any of the steps along the way and what marketing people say because it makes no sense to me anyway. A lot of the time, not the analytical, logical piece of it. You know,
okay.
can't we can't be logical about making people behave like that because otherwise we're making them behave like rats, and I don't like that.
Okay. So it kind of goes back to the same point. Like you have evidence of what works for you, but then you're actively spinning your wheels trying to make something else that you don't even like work for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's coming up for you internally when I reflect that back?
Well, I'd already reduced down Instagram to basically kind of really minimize it because I don't feel that it's a healthy container for my work. And I've been looking at YouTube for greater longevity so that people can engage and take their time. And then once they've taken their time, they're more likely to come over for the email, right? So it's a gentler, slower nurturing process I feel is more appropriate for me.
Hmm.
And to use those platforms that I've used in the past to be more nurturing and allow that container for people. And I have been taking time to build in new email systems within the app, so that when people come through with email, like they're getting to know and they're kind of pointed to more free resources,
Okay.
and where the
So
community
then,
practices. So I think it's more the nurturing piece again, like you said, and also directing people, even more specifically directing them within the emails.
to buy something.
Yeah, and to what's going, yeah, so they know what's going on and they can really find it and know it and be confident of their
Okay.
choice.
So if you're clear on that, so like what is the problem then? If you're also clear on that.
I want to see the people in the groups. But
Okay.
then I'm only saying that to you right now, right? Those tweaks need to happen.
Okay. So it's like we keep kind of going in these circular things because it's like I know what the issue is, and then I go and I look somewhere else to solve some other issue, and then I should actually be solving this issue, but then I just never really focus on the thing that I know I actually need to do. So is this like a follow through problem for you? Or is this like I don't actually trust what I feel like I need to know? Or is it like where do you intuitively think this is all landing for you?
I'm good at doing. I've trained myself out of overdoing because that used to be my stress response.
Hmm.
So I do get stuff done. Um, I and I have been making those steps to bring things back, in terms of what's going out there, so that I can really be content with it being more nourishing. Um, I feel like it's just it's weird because like it will wake me up at 1 a.m. Like it's this weird subconscious thing that doesn't seem to make any sense. Like in my waking day, I can do the actions and I can do the work, and then I can wake up in my sleep and be like, "There's not enough signups."
Okay, so that's just like a general fear
Yeah,
that there's not
it's
enough signups.
just
Okay.
this thing that, and it pops up. That's when it pops up. So I feel like it's just this irritating subconscious fear.
Okay. So that's a totally different thing. So when you wake up in this fear, is it objectively true that there's like not enough signups and then something bad is going to happen? Or this is just more of like a panic based off of the fact that there's just not as much signups as you'd like?
No, I'm not going to say it's based on anything objective, even if it could be said that it was at times. Like it happens too much for it to be an objectively based fear. It's completely,
Right. So I get signups, there's still not enough. I don't get any signups,
yeah,
still not enough. So it's like there's across the board that
it's
that's not
just, yeah.
okay. And if it's waking up in the middle of the night with to the point where like you can't sleep, like this is pretty deep seated. Like it's not just okay. So you're obviously very aware of yourself. You have a lot of modalities in kind of your toolbox. If you had to coach yourself through that fear, what do you think it's actually about?
Um, I've I've touched on it in various different angles. So it's definitely tapping into kind of the, collective lack beliefs. Um, and you could say like parts of childhood where there wasn't enough money, and but we didn't have various things. So there's the usual kind of like bits of childhood not enough. There's also not been good enough at school, which I was very much taught as a kid that I wouldn't be very good. I wasn't very intelligent, so there's a lack in that sense. So there's a few different lacks. I was bullied when I was very young, so also a lack of friendships, a lack of having sense of belonging. So there's a lot that I know and I'm aware of, that there's a lack when I was a child that it could stem from. And I have most of those things in other areas of my life. I would definitely say, there is enough money. I have great friendships now. I have great relationships. I've had a successful legal career, like all of those things. The lack of those things, they don't exist. And I know that. And so this is the last piece that seems to know how to cling on.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. So that's helpful. So even if I'm just looking at that, right? So I feel there's not enough. part of childhood, there was never enough money, not being good enough at school, not being intelligent enough, not having friendships, lacking belonging. Okay. If I look at what you mentioned about the groups, so one of my vulnerabilities is people tell me the groups are very small. Okay. What's that going to trigger? Well, lack of friendships, lack of belonging. Okay. Despite the fact that I see clearly, okay, well, email is probably my best bet, and that's where I make the most sales. Well, doesn't matter. There's never enough, despite the fact objectively I know there's a big part of what I'm doing for free. That's not going to convert, but there's never not enough. Okay. I'm actually okay at home. I've got a successful legal career behind me. Like I'm comfortable, but there's never enough money. Right. So it's like pretty clear how these feelings and these old held beliefs are now triggering like a lot of things inside of your business. Even the whole
Mm.
I'm relegating to authority in these marketing experts and actively ignoring what my own data tells me. Why? Because I got a fear that I'm not intelligent. I can't actually trust, what my own discernment tells me. So, do you see how a lot of these patterns are now starting to seep into the business
Yeah.
decisions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when you hear this reflected back to you, like, is this new realizations, it's old realizations, it's said in a different way? Like, where are you at with like hearing all of this?
What I'm hearing is refreshing, just in that I've done a lot of getting rid of a lot of weak points, as it were, where there are leaks that happen with those old belief patterns. And it's remembering, you know, like you say, like with using social media and stuff, like actually really, really just being even more um, clean and tidy, I think, with myself around how I reinforce any of those old belief patterns by letting that in.
So, what do you mean by like by that specifically?
So letting in, a consultant or someone else's opinion or someone else, even a client's comment, like letting that in and letting it then kind of sow a seed of doubt in my in the way that I'm normally very good and very specific in my business of like, I like this feels really good. I don't normally really do very much if I don't feel really good with it. And I appreciate, like, when the Instagram account started growing, which I didn't anticipate, I was like, fine, I take responsibility for that. There's an audience and that I will do this and I will give it a go. So, like I still felt good within myself. And then when it didn't feel good anymore, I was like, I don't want to do it. So I'll give it to someone else to do. And really, I should just not pay someone else to do it. I should just get rid of it or do like my one post a month approach currently. So I think it needs to, it's coming back to being really, really clear and specific. And when those little things happen in the external world that trigger those subconscious beliefs, I just need to be really, really, I really need to sit with myself and be like, I need to be very clear about, does this really feel good?
Right. So it's kind of like these things are going to happen, and I just got to get better at coping with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair. And one of the filters that I always use in my coaching is like you can't be triggered if you're not loaded. So in that instance, when I look at everything you shared today, there's a lot of things that your subconscious is still loaded about, right? All of the belonging, the friendships, the intelligence, they're not good enough, not enough money, etc. If you're waking up at 3 a.m. after going to sleep normally, that's a lot of nervous system activity that is, running quite agitating and panicky to wake you up. So if that's happening and then you're having all of these triggers at very benign things, like somebody making a comment, from my vantage point, there's a lot of places that you're loaded. And that's not a negative thing. That's just kind of more reflecting my observation. So it's really then, do you want to cope with that? Or has that been the main thing you've been able to do versus I can be actually imagining myself to show up and like not being triggered at all. So like where are you at with all that?
No, show up without being triggered. That's
Okay.
definitely my preference.
Okay. So that is your preference. Why do you think your brain went to, I just got to get better and work harder at coping?
Probably because that was the strategy that was deployed when I was a child.
Hmm. And do you think that's just another part of your past coming into sabotage your present?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'd rather cope with things than actually
Right.
fully address them. Yeah. Okay. So what's coming up for you internally when I'm reflecting back to that?
I'm excited.
Okay. For what?
Not coping anymore. I hate coping. I hate managing. I hated managing my depression and my mental health stuff, which have completely gone. And I don't coping and managing are not strategies. Delay tactics.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and they're not necessary. What I think you are
Yeah.
experiencing now is all of the inner healing that you've done has taken you to here. And your current business and your current level of income is an expression of all of that. When I talk about the stuff I talk about in terms of identity, and my working definition of identity is everything I consistently think, feel, and act. So my business right now is a full expression of everything that I'm thinking, feeling, and acting on a regular basis. So my next expression of my business is going to require essentially a different identity, somebody who is different in terms of leadership as far as how I think and I feel, and specifically as far as the actions that I take. It requires a different thing because that's going to lead to different results. And right now, the pieces of that identity up level that are missing for you is really the parts of yourself that you've healed in quote unquote your personal life, okay, are now seeping into the business and creating limits, mostly in terms of, I think, decision making, hesitation, missing clarity, where I think you actually have objective evidence towards clarity, but it's just creating this hamster wheel that I don't think is necessarily needed. And I think that's what's on the other side for you when you heal the past, start to separate from those emotions and upgrade how you're thinking. So, what's landing for you from all of that?
I'm excited to find out who that next person is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a much
Yeah.
better perspective than I'm going to get better at coping with it. So, kudos to you for that. Okay, so anyway, as much as I wish I could work with you to help you step into that next level person on the podcast, that's outside the scope of this, but in terms of just deeper awareness around the current issues that you're experiencing, does this feel like you've gotten that awareness, or is there still something left outstanding?
No, no, it feels like it fits with the awareness that of the scenario that's been at play. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, in that case, I'd love for you to close us off by letting everybody
Thank
know
you.
who to find you, let everybody know who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Okay. So if called to work with me, whatever level it is in your body that's bothering you, we have the Nid Ra app, which you can get in any of the good old phone app stores. And there's a free library of over 150 wellbeing resources, whether that's meditation, breath work, or movement practices or contemplation that you can go and enjoy and do in your own time. And you can join us for the community monthly practice, which you can book within the app. And its donations go to charities each month. So please do come and connect and share some loving space with some beautiful people.
Love it. Well, we'll include all that in the show notes. And Nid, thank you very much for being on. And for everybody
Thank you,
else listening,
Casco.
we'll see you on
Thank
the
you so
next
much
one.
for your time.
Very welcome.